Hello and welcome back to the Nasty Metal Production here at YouTube, and welcome to another album of the week. This is episode number 171, and today's episode is a spotlight on Pain, the Styx studio album from Australian hard rockers Rose Tattoo. This, of course, was a reunion album for these guys, and I'll get into more about that too. This was originally released in June 3rd of 2002, again released through Steamhammer and SPV Records. So at this point, it's probably already reached its 20th anniversary. So since I'm going to be doing a lot of brief rundown history for at least just everything that leads into the overall recording and the release of Pain by Rose Tattoo here, let's just get right into it. Let's just get into the overall topics of Pain by Rose Tattoo. And so the history that leads up to this album, it pretty much all the way goes back to 1983, pretty much post Scarred for Life, which at this point, since it was released in 1982, it's already reached its 40th anniversary. Or at least it could be reaching its 40th anniversary. But sometime it is, at least this year. But again, it goes all the way back to post Scarred for Life. So in 1983, after the US tour, Riley, Royal, and Wells all left. The remaining duo of Anderson and Leach recruited guitarists Greg Jordan and John Mayer, which is not that John Mayer, from Perth progressive metal band, or was it Saracen, from the band Saracen. Okay, that's what because I'm reading this shit off of Wikipedia, because I don't have any time to kind of string together my own little verbiage, whatever, for this brief rundown. I just need a little something to kind of really kind of give this video a little bit of length and whatnot. But I'm gonna try and speed as much through this as much as I can. But again, so back to this again. Anderson and Leach recruited guitarists Greg Jordan and John Mayer from, of course, the band Saracen, who are a progressive, I guess you can say, rock/metal band that were part of the new wave or British heavy metal movement. And of course with drummer Scott Johnson. Again, I guess was in bands such as Jimmy and the Boys, Outline, Kids in the Kitchen, Flash in the Pan, Swain, and Peter Wells. I guess whatever. I guess that might be what Wikipedia's, whoever wrote this, that could be the name of the bands this guy was in. Okay, so the band with this lineup recorded 1984 Southern Stars, which was pretty much their last album for Albert Productions, and it was their last with the producers Vanda and Young, and Harry Vanda and George Young, which then by the next year would end up doing more stuff again with AC/DC. So there we go. However, after the album, Leach then exited to join Cox, Cox, Royal, and Wells and Illustrated Men, which toured during 1984 through 1985. Anderson, of course, again, Angry Anderson here, took time out to play the character Iron Bar, Bassie, I think it's Bassie, or Bassie, in the Mad Max Beyond Thunderdome movie in 1985. That year, Rose Tattoo, with the lineup of Angry Anderson, Johnston, Greg Johnston, or Greg Jordan, I guess just John Mayer, and Andy Sitchian, with, I guess, Tim Gaze, again, for slide guitaring, released a cover of fucking Born to Be Wild by Steppenwolf, their first release for, of course, the Mushroom Records label. Mayer then left the group and recorded 1986 Beats from a Single Drum, which this would pretty much be the final Rose Tattoo record. Even though it's just Rose Tattoo in name, it pretty much just feels more like an Angry Anderson solo album, and it will pretty much it will be recorded as a 4-piece, and it will be their final for the Mushroom Records label. Soon after, Angry Anderson started his solo career, and the band separated by the end of 1987. Technically, I guess you can say it already began with the Beats from a Single Drum, but again, he was just using the Rose Tattoo name. The album was subsequently re-released as Anderson's first solo album, which I think might have been fitting, with the ballad Suddenly as his debut solo single. However, Angry Anderson has admitted regret in recording the pop/ballad-oriented album. Suddenly had little chart success until it was used on a TV soap opera, I guess titled Neighbours. I guess that would be maybe an Australian, New Zealand style soap opera TV show. Again, for the wedding, whatever. Half this shit, I don't know if I really care much to read through, but because it just seems to be bullshit here. Alright, so let's definitely just skip all the way over to 1988, where basically in the early 90s, Angry Anderson tried to reunite Rose Tattoo, but Dallas Royal died in 1991 of cancer when being treated for his heroin addiction and alcoholism, which delayed that reformation. Angry Anderson explained to Nick Milligan in March of 2011 it was in Los Angeles in 1989 recording an album, which the Bound for Glory single, I guess this was for one of his solo records at this point in time, came off, and he was hanging around with Gunners and a lot of other LA bad boy rock bands that were supposedly influenced by Rose Tattoo. I realized that from the fact that I was there to reestablish myself as a singer/songwriter. There was still this great following for the band. I rang up the other members and said, let's reform. We've been apart for 3 years or more. It was long enough for us to settle our differences and let all the wounds heal. I rang up each of the original members that were still interested, and they all said, yeah, let's get together. So I said we should negotiate a deal where the band can come over and record in Los Angeles. But of course, that was the year that our original drummer, Digger Dallas Royal, kicked his heroin habit while he was recovering on methadone. Cancer exploded through his body, quite sadly. That was the irony of it, because the cancer had been suppressed by the heroin addiction. Within months, he was dead. That shook the band so badly on a personal level because we had been so enthusiastic to reform. We didn't reform until 1992. Rose Tattoo supported Guns N' Roses on the Australian leg of their User Illusion tour. Anderson, Wells, and Cox, Leach were joined by new drummer Paul DeMarco. From Wells' solo band reunited for the 1993 tour. The reunion was brief as each returned to solo projects. Around this time, some ex-members of Rose Tattoo formed a short-lived band with Candy Harlot's vocalist, Aze Lynch. It had numerous rehearsals, but only recorded one demo before disbanding. Now, let's finally get into the second reformation, which pretty much would begin from 1998 to 2010. Again, most of some of this stuff that I guess that was going on between the Rose Tattoo stuff was all from 1988 to 1997. So here we go. Let's definitely continue on again before I really get into the Pain album that is going to be in talks here. So here we go. Rose Tattoo, then with original bassist Ian Ryland replacing Leach, reformed yet again in 1998 for the All Hell Breaks Loose tour. However, Ryland remained with the band only for the duration of this tour. By the following year, Leach had returned to the fold once more, although his place was taken by Steve King in 2000. Rock music historian Ian McFarlane wrote that they are one of the most revered bands of all time. The Tats played peerless, street-level heavy blues with the emphasis on side guitar and strident lyric statements in his Encyclopedia of Australian Rock and Pop. Since that time, Rose Tattoo has toured regularly around Australia and throughout Europe. In 2000, the band appeared at the Wacken Open Air Festival as part of their tour. These shows formed the basis of the 25 to Life live album at the Gimme Ted benefit concert in March 10th of 2001. The group performed 5 songs. In 2002, saw the release of Pain. So this, of course, Cox rejoined the troupe and played material for, of course, a future album. All right, so there we go. That must be after the album. So I'll get into more of this stuff after I get through talking about Pain. So let's get into Pain right here, shall we? Let's get into it. Again, released on June 3rd, I believe, of 2002, so last I looked up. The lineup, of course, for the band here, let me find the, here we go, is, of course, is Angry Anderson, Pete Wells, Rockin' Rob Riley, Steve King, and Paul DeMarco. It was, of course, was produced by Reiner Hansel, who, again, has done a lot of stuff for, goddamn, he did a lot of stuff like either Destruction, Molly Hatchet, Saxon, and maybe even Sodom here and there. You know, he's done a lot of production work for a lot of those kind of bands, and he was definitely became one of the more in-house producers for SPV/Steamhammer Records. You know, he was definitely their in-house for a long time up until his late passing a few years ago. This, of course, was also engineered and mixed by Herman Frank. I believe it should be that Herman Frank that was the guitar player for like Accept and Hazard, Victory, and of course these days does his solo stuff. You know, he's even part of that what was the real good formation with Mark Tanillo on vocals, that band, you know, from like Blood of the Nations up until Blind Rage. So I should believe it's that Herman Frank. You know, let me look that up real quick. Is it that Herman Frank? Let me go up. I'm going to do a real quick search here. I'm going to do a real quick search because it's got to be that same Herman Frank, which is crazy. So I know this is kind of halting right now, but this is a little bit crazy. It is that Herman Frank. Wow. That's crazy. So I guess with the team of Reiner Hansel and Herman Frank, this pretty much just led for a lot of the recordings for Pain. And pretty much by the end of these sessions, they probably just chose the entire fucking session because there was at least 16 songs that were chosen for the album here. 16 songs were chosen for the album Pain. And with these 16 songs, and I'm going to look it up real quick here since there's really no other online information other than what I've got on my computer. So I'm going to find my folder here, and now I'm going to look up the time length for, of course, Pain here. So properties, here we go. Again, Al clocks in at the length of 56 minutes and 35 seconds. So here we go. Here's all the 16 songs for Pain here. Again, it begins with Black Magic, The Devil Does It Well, No Mercy, the title track, Kisses and Hugs. Kisses and Hugs. 17 Stitches, House of Pain, I Can't Help It If I'm Lucky. Union Man, Satan's Eyes, Satan's Eyes. Hard Rockin' Man, Stir Crazy, Living Outside My Means, I guess it means. Goddamn, I'm gonna go on the fucking my Windows Media Player because of I can't, for some reason the typing on the album is so small. I'm probably gonna have to just reread the entire track list because of I can't, half the time I can't really make out some of the, either just because of the fonts that they use for the back cover here, and some of the shit's small. And all right now, I mean, the lighting in the room is fine, but I don't feel like turning on the lights right now because of it's still, I'm recording this during daylight, for fuck's sake. I'm recording this during daylight. All right, I'm doing this all over again, folks. I'm doing it all over again. So again, so I can make this more smooth. Here we go. Again, it begins with Black Magic, then into The Devil Does It Well, No Mercy, the title track, Kisses and Hugs, 17 Stitches, House of Pain, I Can't Help It If I'm Lucky, Union Man, Satan's Eyes, Hard Rockin' Man, Stir Crazy, Living Outside My Means, Heat of the Moment, Illustrated Man, and finally ending with One More Drink with the Boys. So there it is, folks. Finally I was able to get through all of that. Okay, so where do I really begin now with Pain? Since you could say this is going to go all the way back to, I guess, the Scarred for Life album. I think it just goes back to there because of, while I've I've featured plenty of Rose Tattoos albums on this channel. I think I have. I don't recall if I ever featured the self-titled debut album from 1978, but I know I featured Assault and Battery, and that was last year. I did it around at least the time of its 40th anniversary. But I haven't really done Scarred for Life for this channel, and I haven't done like Southern Stars, nor like Beat from a Single Drum, you know. I haven't done those. So this is probably the second real Rose Tattoo album that I've at least showcased on here, and as far as I've listened to any of the stuff that was post Scarred for Life, I know beginning with Scarred for Life, they started to kind of tone down a little bit of the edge of it, even though it still is a very fun rock record. But compared to like Assault and Battery, it was a little tamer because of like Assault and Battery is a little more of a very mean and aggressive, heavy record, where it almost had more of a punk attitude to it. Just because of the visceral edge that was being felt through those songs, like especially emotionally and lyrically. It was a very angry sounding album. I know, no pun intended to Angry Anderson, but it just was a lot more of a meaner and leaner kind of record, and also Scarred for Life, while having some, you know, it still had some good hooks in there, but it just wasn't nearly as catchy at times also compared to the self-titled debut album. So it lacked some of the more memorable kind of hooks of the first album, but also lacked the mean and aggressive nature of, and that primal nature, I shall say as well, of Assault and Battery. But it still was a fine record. But after that album, from what I've at least sampled of Southern Stars, they really kind of toned down even more. Like they went more, I wouldn't say AOR, but they went even more for like that sort of almost commercial kind of sound away. It really kind of, the real edge and the heaviness was toned down even more. And then by the solo record that was passed off as a Rose Tattoo album, it seemed like it just went to straight up pop or whatever, you know. It just wasn't the same. It just wasn't the same. I didn't feel the same. I think because of also a lot of the original guys, you know, leaving the band, it pretty much put a damper on the sound. So since this was actually my third Rose Tattoo album that I bought on CD, and it's the third one that I ever owned, because of, for the longest time, I've owned the self-titled album and Assault and Battery. But I've at least listened to albums like Scarred for Life on YouTube and stuff, and it's just because of it. It's not a really easy record to find these days. It's not that easy. Actually, it's almost difficult to find a lot of Rose Tattoo stuff out here in the wild. But I was lucky enough to find at least Pain some years ago. And of the more later albums, in comparison, this feels a lot more like it could have been the natural follow-up to probably Scarred for Life, but it also sounds like it could have easily been like a follow-up to like Assault and Battery. It really kind of brings back even more of the classic Tat sound, where you, especially within songs like Black Magic and Pain and No Mercy and what are some other ones I can kind of bring up for like just as an example here, you know. I think there's some of the ones that really kind of come across as really being heavy and very rockin'. I mean, sure, songs like, for example, like The Devil Does It Well and Kisses and Hugs and Union Man and Hard Rockin' Man, Stir Crazy and Heat of the Moment definitely sound like songs that also could have been on like Scarred for Life, but they got more of the hooks that I would say that you know, got more of the hooks of like the self-titled debut. It just like, it really has a way of combining some of those albums all together, and it just sounds more like a straight up classic Rose Tattoo album. And it's just, again, it's back to just being lean and mean. And again, there's a lot of great bluesy moments on here, and a lot of great sort of rock and roll moments. This is definitely a solid Rose Tattoo album. It's not the most amazing album they've put out. Again, since a lot of people are going to be really trying, when they look at this sound, they're going to try have in mind the classics in mind. You know, they're going to try and hope that at least it measures up to those. And I think that can be a little bit of a that can be a bit of a difficult thing to do, because the album is not nearly as brilliant as some of those early records, but at the same time, it's definitely a much more of a better album than like Southern Stars and, of course, Beats from a Single Drum. It's just a much better album than those two. And I think maybe slightly better than Scarred for Life. I know that's going to be blasphemy to say, because I know there's a lot of people that also hold that album very high. But I don't know. It's just, I think it's a really good album from beginning to end. I know Angry Anderson you can tell he aged by this time, because he doesn't sound nearly as young. He doesn't nearly sound nearly as good as he did on some of those earlier albums, but he still sounds fine. He still has a very nice, he still holds some punch to these songs. He still commands the overall performance of the album. He still commands the attention of the listener, I feel. He still does. And again, some of the original guys that were on this album, they all still put together a great album. The performances are still great. There's a lot of energy here. I think, if anything, they just put in what they needed to do, and that's just give you a good rock and roast tattoo album. It's definitely heavy in some places. It still has some hooks there. But I think it's a solid record from beginning to end, and I really couldn't be any more satisfied with this album. I can't be disappointed with this one. When I first listened to it, it was like, this is a really good later day roast tattoo album. It's just good, goes along well with the first two, and to an extent, Scarred for Life. I know 16 songs though seems a bit too much, because they probably could have just picked the 11 to 10, 11 or 12 best songs. But for an album of this caliber, you really can't complain too much. I think it's a fun, solid album from beginning to end. So I can go on and on about how, the good stuff about Pain, but I think it's a really good album, and it's definitely songs like the title track really come across as being more meaner, and it's which comes back to a little bit of the lyrical visceralness of like Assault and Battery. So it does what it needs to do, and I think it's a solid album from beginning to end. So I can't really complain. But there we go. I know I spent the most time talking about the history than I did half the fucking record. But hey, it is what it is. Gotta try and find a way to kind of speed on through. I'm gonna try and look through here, find where I left at. Here we go. I guess this is pretty much gonna be like basically after the album, Cox rejoined the group, and they prepared material for a future album. Plans for the next album, Blood Brothers, were disrupted when Wells died on March 27th of 2006, 4 years after his diagnosis of prostate cancer. On August 16th, Rose Tattoo were inducted by musician Sarah McLeod, hope I pronounced that correctly, into the Australian Recording Industry Association, and the ARIA Hall of Fame, alongside former member Lobby Lloyd and Daddy Cool, The Vinyls, and Ice House, and Helen Reddy. I guess that's all for the those bands, whatever. Yeah, since again, all Australian as well. Again, probably the only one that I recognize most is The Vinyls, which again, ended up being a much bigger band than Rose Tattoo were, but again, there might have been some sort of influence there as well, just because they were one of the first earlier bands alongside AC/DC and The Angels, as just being that classic Australian hard rock lining, So there we go. Again, Angry Anderson had informed Wells of the forthcoming induction. He was shuffled, I guess that means, or shuffled. I was so glad he knew about it. It's good we're getting recognized for the music. We've gone out and done it our own way, to our detriment, to our betterment. So again, founding member Ian Rillan then died on October 30th from bladder cancer. One of his last public appearances was at the Hall of Fame induction. Also in October, a number of Rose Tattoo songs were voted upon and ranked And Triple M Essential 2006 Countdown of Songs, including Bad Boy for Love, voted number 1060 out of 2006. And of course, We Can't Be Beaten, voted number 397 out of 2006. That month, they were one of 55 acts voted and played in Triple J's Impossible Music Festival of 2006. With their live recording of a gig performed on New Year's Day 1980 in Mount Druitt, New South Wales. And then, of course, being selected out of 1,000 live at the wireless recordings over the radio stations, 31 plus year in history. On April 21st, 2007, Lobby Lloyd had passed away at the age of 65, 2 years after being diagnosed with lung cancer. In June, Rose Tattoo supported Guns N' Roses with Sebastian Bach on their Chinese Democracy Tour. Oh, shit. Oh boy. Again, their tour's Australian leg. In October, they supported Motorhead on their Australian tour dates. Yes, I perked up for that. In an interview with Australian rock magazine Unbelievably Bad, Anderson announced his intention to retire the band after one more album. That probably would have been for Blood Brothers, which was released in 2007. And that pretty much probably does remain one of the last full-length albums in a while before they did, was it that covers or re-recordings album? Was it last year, I think, or was it in 2020? In 2008, they played the Download Festival, which was, I believe, in Donington. That pretty much replaced the Monsters of Rock Festival, which Rose Tattoo sadly was never a part of, which I'm shocked by that, but they do a lot of like the stuff for the Reading Festival. In April 2009, it was announced that guitarist Mick Cox had liver cancer. He sadly died on December 22nd. By 2010, 5 former members had died of various cancers. Dallas Royal throat cancer in 1991, Peter Wells, prostate cancer in 2006, Ian Reeland, bladder cancer in 2006, Lobby Lloyd, lung cancer in 2007, and then Mick Cox, liver cancer in 2009. So this pretty much ended up being the very rough and very sad story for Rose Tattoo. So pretty much again, this leads on to the next phase, being a final statement to Outlaws 2011, basically current. And they still are performing, it's just with a much more newer lineup because again, most of the original guys pretty much have passed away. So Angry Anderson has just been continuing on and soldiering on with the Rose Tattoo name, keeping the spirit alive as much as he can. Again, he of course had his birthday, a few days ago or so. So again, it's just a crazy story for these guys, and also almost very anticlimactic. Because it seems like compared to a lot of the other Australian bands, Rose Tattoo was one that I think had the roughest history of them all. Even, again, way more rough compared to like AC/DC or the Angels. So it's just real crazy there. But that pretty much just ends up being the entire story for Rose Tattoo. And it's just crazy that Pain and Blood Brothers end up being one of the final albums with a lot of the original guys that were left. Besides, not getting Dallas Royal, for any other album up to his a sad passing, in 1991. It just ends up being I guess it's just how the law of the jungle works in some ways, and the overall music industry just sucks there. But I'm just gonna end things right there. Again, Pain, it's a really solid album from beginning to end, and I do enjoy it a lot. Once in a while, and here and there, I'll pull this album out when I'm just in that sort of Rose Tattoo mood, and I think it really pulls it off for me. It really it scratches that itch for me, and I think it's a really good album. So, again, if there is any of you that have at least have been familiar with this album from Rose Tattoo, well, again, especially this album right here, if you have any sort of thoughts about Pain by Rose Tattoo, whether it be positive or negative, you can leave them in the comment section below. But if you've never listened to Pain by Rose Tattoo, and you're kind of on the fence of whether or not it's going to be as good as some of those early records, or you're just maybe beginning to get into Rose Tattoo, it's probably not the album I would recommend to check out first. it's definitely going to be at least maybe any of the first 3 albums. That being the self-titled, maybe you should always start out with the first album, and of course to like Assault and Battery and Scarred for Life. But if you want at least more of that kind of sound, just that overall style and that just that overall feel, I would say Pain is definitely a pretty good album to check out. I still haven't checked out Blood Brothers, but it's probably going to be a good album, and I'm probably going to get a lot of people in the comment section saying that, oh yeah, you definitely should check out Blood Brothers. It's a much better album than Pain. I'm probably going to get that, and I'm fine with that. Hopefully at some point down the road, I end up finding a copy of Blood Brothers, and I'll pick it up, and then I'll be able to enjoy that album, or just that fucking sucker for years to come. So there you go. Hope all of you enjoyed. This is Theory Thrasher saying I'm out, and I'll see you all later. Take care, everyone.